お嬢様、どうか気をお沈めください。
誰が犯人かはまだわかりませんぞ。それにベアトリーチェ様、親方様の大切な賓客です。
だからなんだってんだ。本人の胸ぐらひねり上げてやれば白状するに決まってるぜ。目を見ればわかるんだよ。私が見破ってやる。何が魔女だ、ベアトリーチェだ。化けの皮を剥いでやる。
Jessica never stopped moving. Yoda and Canon chased after her, doing their best to convince her to stop, but Jessica never lent them an ear. Eventually, the witch's VIP room came into view. This VIP room was always sealed and never used. No matter what kind of guest came, Kinzo wouldn't let them in there, and yet the servants were always made to clean this room so that it could be used at any time. So the servants had started calling this room the witch's VIP room, after their second shapeless master. Jessica knew this too, and she couldn't forgive the arrogance of the one who called herself a witch by staying in that room. The Golden Witch was just a fairy tale. Come on, a witch? To Jessica, she was nothing more or less than the murderer who had brutally killed her parents. Question her, hear her pitiful excuses made her splutter in pain, gasp in anguish. No matter how hard she pretends to be a witch, I'll teach her that she's just a stinking, sweaty human. As Jessica yelled with all her strength, she hit on the door to the VIP room. It definitely wasn't a knock. The sound of the beating of her anger's hammer as if she was determined to break the door down if it wasn't opened. There was no answer. Jessica grabbed at the doorknob without any reservation, but she felt the resistance of the lock. She turned around to look at the two servants and spoke.
ここマスターキーで開くんでしょ。開けて。
お嬢様、それは大変な失礼にあたります。
Although Gerda was flustered, he still tried to somehow calm Jessica's anger. After hanging his head silently for a while, Canon pulled a master key out from his jacket pocket.
カノンさん、いいんですか？
もしおられたなら無礼になるのは承知です。それにもしベアトリーチェ様が何の関係もないというなら、それを僕たちに釈明して納得させればいい。そうだぜ、その通りだ。借りるぜ。
Jessica snatched the master key from Canon's hand and violently shoved it into the keyhole. Immediately there was a small sound as she felt the locks click. Then, without asking permission, she flung the door open. She's not in there, is she? Jessica rudely stepped into the room. The witch wasn't anywhere to be seen.
お姿がありませんね。
Did she... I don't think Beatrice is real here. I don't think she's actually... I don't think what we saw earlier was a real person. Because, like... she didn't really interact with anything, so we haven't proven she's directly real, only that some people have seen her. And if we can just say those people are lying, then she's not there. Jessica, thinking that she might be hiding somewhere inside the room, peeked behind the curtains and under the bed, but she couldn't find anyone. However, there definitely were signs that the bed had been used. And though it was only a vague sense, the atmosphere in the room felt a little soft. We can just say one of the servants slept there last night to make it more convincing, or someone did. Maybe Rosa, who knows? It wasn't the hard atmosphere of a place normally devoid of people like the chapel. You could definitely tell that someone had spent the night in this room. But she could not be seen. In reality, neither Jessica nor Gerda had met Beatrice. They had only been told by those who had met her but she looked like a double of a character in a portrait. So they were doubtful about what her face really looked like. However, Canon alone had met her. He understood what kind of thing that witch was, what kind of personality she had. So he knew that forcing their way in here in search of her definitely wouldn't work out. She must be watching us bitterly flail about in vain from somewhere sneering at us. She's that kind of person. Because he is looking at things that way, Canon was the first to find it. The other two were concentrating on finding the shadow of a person so they didn't notice. Near the jug of water on the side of the table was a single piece of letter paper. On it was a short message, and nearby was a fountain pen which had been probably used to write it. Canon had already came to understand the witch, so after finding the corpses, they'd been overcome by rage and barged in here only to find no one. So of course the witch would mock them. You can't mock someone unless they know they're being mocked. So in other words, that's what this must be.
お嬢様、ここに何か書かれています。書かれてるってなんだ?
Jessica dashed over and violently snatched the piece of paper away. She probably wasn't trying to be violent, she just couldn't control her strength right now. As soon as she read the message, Jessica went into a wild rage, crumpled up the paper and threw it. Then she grabbed a light stand by the bedside and silently flung it around, mercilessly hitting the walls and furniture with it. The light bulbs all shattered at once and the fragments were scattered across the room.
お嬢様、気をお静めください。お怪我をなさいます。
離せよ！畜生！畜生！出てきやがれ、ベアトリーチェ！よくも父さんと母さんを！そんなに私が怖えかよ！殺してやる！殺してやる！ぶっ殺してやるから姿を現しやがれ！だから離せって言ってんだろ！くそー
This was what was written on the paper.
私がぬくぬくとここであなたが飛び込んでくるのを待ちぼうけるとでも？知的な夜に粗暴なるあなたは似合わない。こんな間抜けに育てた親はどんな顔？見たよ。本当にそっくりな間抜け面。今はお菓子の国でお腹いっぱい。
It was the sort of thing that a witch would write. It means she'd predicted that one of the children who'd lost their parents would come running in here. If she's hiding somewhere in this room, she must be rolling around laughing now. The witch that was that kind of person. She stared at people's misfortune, using it to stave off the boredom of 1,000 years.
これはお渡しください。お怪我をなさいますと申し上げております。
離せって言ってんだよ！くそー！くそー
Yoda snatched away the light stand Jessica had been holding. After all, if she kept swinging it around, she might end up smashing it against something which could cause serious injury. To Yoda's eyes, Jessica probably looked mad with rage, burning herself up with the flames of anger. But Canon's eyes saw it differently. Those were probably tears of sadness hidden by rage. So, when the light stand was taken from Jessica, and she started crying on the floor, scratching at the carpet almost as though she was grovelling, Yoda was surprised, but Canon was not. Of course. She had lost her means of crying by lashing out in rage. Considering that she was the daughter of the Ushiyamaya head family, she was in a very shabby state. She scratched at the carpet with her fingernails, and even her feet were scratching. Jessica cried very, very hard, because if she didn't, her rage would start building up again and swallow her up. But over and over again, she remembered that humiliating message. I can only imagine what the parents who raised you to be such a moron must have looked like.
悪くなんかじゃない。父さんも母さんも頭が良かった。私なんかとは違う。本当に頭が良かった。悪くなんかじゃない。取り消せ。取り消せ。
Oh right, I saw them, and they looked just as moronic as you. Now their bellies are full in the land of sweets.
殺してやる。殺してやる。野郎の腹を裂いて同じ目に遭わせてやる。
As Jessica cried out and screamed, she triggered an asthma attack. The servants watching over her hurriedly ran over her and rubbed her back, but that only provoked Jessica's wrath.
そんなことする暇があったらあいつを探せよ。探し出して私のところへ連れてこい。お前らが行かないなら私が探せ。そしてこの手で殺してやる。腹を引き裂いてやる。触るんじゃねえぜ。畜生。畜生。
Jessica got up unsteadily, and as her asthma continued, she went out into the hallway.
お嬢様、お薬を至急。南條先生をお呼びします。
郷田さん、僕に任せてくれませんか。
Canon had noticed. Goda, who was vastly separated from her own age, probably couldn't sense the tears in Jessica's heart. Canon, who had noticed, had been sworn to support her.
カノンさん、いいのですか。
今のお嬢様には涙を流す時間も必要なのだと思います。ご両親のあんな死に方を目の当たりにしては。
そうですね。
Goda also understood, and he knew that Jessica and Canon had a shared, vague relationship with each other, so he understood everything and left it to Canon.
わかりました。私はローザ様のところへ戻ります。お嬢様をくれぐれもよろしくお願いしますよ。
はい、お任せを。
Canon's voice was frail, but he nodded firmly. After looking at his eyes, Goda nodded firmly as well. Goda was a veteran with many years behind him. He'd seen a great number of people in his life, so he knew the vigorous sparkle that could be found in the eyes of those who possessed self-control. He had surely seen that in Canon's eyes, so he would leave this to Canon. When you think about it, maybe this was the first time Goda had ever entrusted Canon and relied on him for a job. Jessica, still suffering from her asthma, seemed to be heading towards her room, though she kept leaning against the walls. Canon followed her wordlessly. If she asked for a hand, he would have been leapt forward and supported her, but until Jessica did ask that, he would choose to hide himself, watching over her from a distance where he could come to her rescue at any time. When people feel their hearts are about to explode from sadness and to have someone by their sides, you can bet 10 billion of them would turn around and find someone in the place Canon now stood. As he watched over Jessica from behind, then finally she doubled over in front of the door in front of her. The asthma attack had stolen all of her strength. As her thoughts had gotten hazy from lack of oxygen, making it impossible to even stand up again. But right then, Jessica didn't think she wanted someone to lend a hand. She hadn't been able to overcome the flames of anger. Even if she had Even if someone had offered her a hand with good intentions, Jessica would have wanted to tear it off them right now. She knew how unfair that would be, so she definitely wouldn't ask for help until she overcome the fiery burning anger inside. Jessica had probably lost the willpower to even call for help, but Canon heard it. He definitely heard it. Canon definitely heard the voiceless call for help only shared by miserable grievers the world round. An endless scream that no one ever seems to hear. Canon quietly knelt by Jessica's side and wordlessly offered her a shoulder. Though Jessica had kept coughing painfully, she accepted it. Unlocked the door to her room and entered.
こちらへ。今、お薬をご用意します。
Jessica often said that when her asthma got serious enough, it hurt so bad that she felt like she'd vomit up her whole stomach. Her face was pale and her gaze wavered, and yet the coughing continued. Even so, her sadness was probably even stronger. After having sit on the bed, Canon took a bronchodilator from the cute little basket on a nearby side table and handed it over to her. Jessica sometimes forgot to take her medicine with her. Whenever this seemed to happen, Canon would notice and secretly carry around the inhaler in the first aid kit in the servant room, but he hadn't done so today. He scolded himself as though wondering how he could call himself furniture after failing to bring it with him on a day like this. Then he remembered the day when he had used that word and somehow betrayed Jessica's feelings. It jarred Canon's heart, but he felt it would be indiscreet to think about something like that considering how Jessica felt now. And he locked himself up inside the depths of his heart. When she inhaled the medicine, Jessica's wild breathing calmed down bit by bit, and she was finally able to regain her composure. But she lost too much strength and willpower to get up from the bed.
大丈夫ですか、お嬢様。
私は大丈夫だぜ。父さんと母さんはダメだけど、私はもうちょっとなきゃ大丈夫だぜ。
Canon regretted his poor choice of words. He really did say, "Are you all right?" to her. Was he really that clueless of the pain in her heart? This is what made him furniture. This is why he couldn't become a human.
廊下におります。ご用がありましたら、すぐにお呼びください。
Canon understood that she still needed some time to cry alone. He told her to call him at any time, bowed and tried to leave the room.
何か
Jessica had spoken up as though she wanted him to stop, so Canon had stopped. If she asks it, I'll do anything I can to help her. Right now I've become even a cane or a chair if it would help ease the pain in her heart. If by doing that I can make up for the pain I dealt to her on that day. For a while Jessica stared into Canon's eyes. It was as though her reason for stopping him was something she couldn't put into words. For a while neither spoke. Jessica broke that silence with a small voice.
ごめん。なんでもないぜ。しばらく一人になりたいって。おさ
一人にはしません。あなたを僕は一人にしない。だから廊下にいます。いつでも呼んでください。
For an instant it looked like some kind of hope had flitted into Jessica's eyes, but it was very faint and disappeared like the first snow on the surface of a river.
ありがとな。しばらくだけ。一人
失礼します。
Canon bowed once again and closed the door. He'd thought those words of his gave her some courage, but now it felt as though they'd actually hurt her for some reason. Why? He didn't know. Surely that was because he was furniture. That's why he couldn't grasp human sadness even now. As Canon repeated questions to himself, he walked down the corridor. He felt like the window at the corridor's end was coolly calling to him. That's coolly calling, okay?
僕はやっぱり家具でしかないのか。
It was still pouring outside, a dark grey world. Even on days like this, Shannon would surely see the ocean and know that it was blue. But to my eyes, even if it cleared up, I would only see grey. I can understand the blue of the ocean. I'll be nothing but furniture imitating a person.
本当に女心のわからぬやつよ。ああいう時は黙ってそばにいるのが正解だ。だからゆえに貴様は家具なのよ。
貴様。
There shouldn't be any trace of human life in this corridor. It'd be an empty corridor filled with frigid air. But those scoffing words approached Canon from behind. Go away. When he turned around, he saw that witch who hadn't shown herself when Jessica had searched for her with rage bordering on madness, who had left sneering at the letter to toy with Jessica.
女の傷つけ方は3つある。特別にわらわが教えてやろう。一つは刃物で傷つける。一つは心で傷つける。そして最後が一番難しく、一番効果的に傷つけられる。なのに意識せずして傷つけられる。わかるか？
わかるわけもないし、知りたくもない。
期待を裏切る。だ。女ほど夢見がちな生き物はいない。勝手に夢を見、勝手に傷つく。お前のような距離の男が一番女を傷つける。わかるまいな。どれほどジェシカを傷つけてきたか、全く考えが及んでいまい。家具だから。
お前のたわごとに付き合う気は毛頭ない。僕を嘲笑うためだけに姿を現したというのか。
Can Jessica hear this? That just in the corridor.
うぬぼれるな家具。貴様ごとき嘲笑うにも足りぬわ。しかしそなたも一人ではそれに値しなくても二人揃えば十分に足りる。若々しき男女の悲運を笑う喜びは何度繰り返しても飽きぬのでな。
なんだと。まさか貴様、お嬢様を。
第二の番の生贄に寄り添う二人が必要なのでな。お前たち二人は実に都合がよい。
待て、勘違いするな。僕はお嬢様とそういう関係じゃない。第二の番の生贄にはならない。
だからお前はジェシカを傷つける。だからお前は人間になれぬ。ならばよいだろう。貴様がジェシカを思い人と認めぬならばそれを受け入れてもよい。だがジェシカは殺す。
なぜ？
このバカが。 決まっておろうが。殺したらそなたが歪めるだろうその表情が楽しいからの他に何の理由が必要なのか。儀式に従いわらわは気まぐれに13人を生贄とする。だがそれ以上殺してはならないとの決まりはない。わらわが楽しければ幾人でも殺す。だから殺す。わらわを思いっきり笑わせてみせろよ。カグカノン。
At that time, Canon definitely heard Jessica scream. When he blinked, he looked down at the corridor over which she had supposedly been there so nonchalantly a second ago, was gone. Oh, no, please don't be dead. I like Jessica. At the moment, he was just standing there all alone in the corridor doing nothing. And the person he wanted to protect was asking for help was far away in that direction. It was obvious what he should do. It wasn't logical. It was an electric reflex. Without a trace of hesitation or distraction, there was the person he wanted to protect and she was asking for help. And at that moment, he genuinely wanted that person to be by his side. When he flew into Jessica's room, the scene that greeted his eyes was a bizarre one. The room had become a fantastical world where a blizzard of gold-coloured specks danced, almost as though gold leaf had been scattered into a snow globe. No, that's not it. He'd seen the spectacle before. This isn't gold leaf. It's countless gold butterflies, Beatrice's minions. Jessica was surrounded by countless butterflies, waving her hands around, frantically trying to drive them away.
お嬢様。
Canon rushed towards Jessica and violently brushed the cloud of butterflies away, but the butterflies, which were thickening despite their beauty, surrounded Jessica's face, trying to crawl in her mouth and nose. Jessica choked violently, almost as though the butterflies were triggering an asthma attack, mocking her. When Canon ran towards her, the butterflies stopped attacking and began to dance in an elegant rondo around the pair. So it's either they both die or just Jessica does, I think.
大丈夫。僕の目の黒いうちはあなたに誰の指一本触れさせたりするものか。出てこい、ベアトリーチェ。これで満足か。
As he stood guard in front of Jessica, who was using her inhaler and seemed to be in pain, Canon yelled into the empty air. When he did, the empty air did indeed laugh back, satisfied. And then she showed herself. It wasn't response to Canon's demand. It was obviously she was appearing, and sneering would bring even more humiliation, and plus it was more fun. Why is your outfit different? Why are you back to the original one? Is this important? Do I have to be paying attention to this?
これで全ては筋書き通りよ。今やそなたは相乗の恋よな。いや、二人が揃ったのだからカモとネギと呼ぶべきか。
ベアトリーチェ。
お下がりください。お嬢様、僕が守る。
姫に騎士が揃わば魔女が現れるのは必然よ。
So this is actual magic Beatrice, I think. The other one is not real Beatrice.
どれ？金蔵の家具がどの程度の力を持つか見せてもらおうではないか。
I'm gonna have to really pay attention to there being two Beatrices. She snapped her fingers with a piercing sound. And when she did, a bizarre blizzard of gold butterflies was stirred up and they began to form a small mountain as they whirled around in a circle. It was just like the swirling of a cold, wintry wind that builds up a mountain of leaves. From that mountain of gold, a hand sprouted and it appeared. As a resident of the world below was crawling up from beneath the ground.
なんだよこれ
Jessica couldn't comprehend what she was seeing right now, and her mouth kept flapping open and closed. It was the bite of wisdom seen in those trying to understand something incomprehensible. The thing that crawling up was probably an attendant who served the witch. It appeared to be wearing a uniform suitable of one who served, but its face was wrong. It looked strange, yet no shit. It was covered in pitch black hair, breathed rotten breath, and its eyes filled with the same strange subterranean glow as lava. And to symbolize its non-human status, it had 2 horns. It was the figure of a goat-faced attendant who served the witch. By now, Jessica had no idea what she should say. All this was happening in front of her, couldn't be explained with common sense, and she couldn't do anything except open and close her mouth. Jessica hadn't realised this island had already been cut off from the rules of the world. But there were things even she could understand. The goat attendant served the witch, and he was after her life. And separately, the witch had already given the order. She looked at Canon with an expectant gaze. She looked at him with an expectant, therefore challenging gaze, as though asking him how he intended to protect this maiden. Though the attendant had looked especially bestial while crawling to its feet, you could see, in a way, it carried itself, it possessed more than enough grace to be worthy of serving the Golden Witch. You could tell it was overflowing with a joy of furniture, wanting to meet its master's expectations.
見せてもらおうではないか。金蔵の家具の力を。今度は間違えるな。家具であることを忘れるな。この後に及んで人間のふりを続けるのなら、死ぬのはお前だけでは済まぬぞ。
The goat attendant made what seemed to be a silent, respectful bow. It was directed at its master, or was it offered to Canon, its opponent? Then the attendant's hand, a blade of wicked malice appeared. Jessica had been unable to understand what was happening before her eyes for a while now. I'm just going to assume none of this is real. Like, I don't have to explain what the goat-headed man is doing here. She understood that this glow in front of her existed for the purpose of ending her life. And right now, that was enough. Canon spoke quietly to Jessica, who was hiding behind his back.
お嬢様、壁に下がっていてください。背中は決して壁から離さないように。
姫君はおとなしく騎士殿の背中に隠れているがいい。
Shut up, Beatrice.
自らの命を男に守らせる醍醐味でも存分に味わえばよい。さあ、カノン、お前の刃を見せてみよ。
Oh, that's why he does that weird pose thing, isn't it?
美しい。金蔵は家具を生み出すことに関してだけはわらわの足元に及ぶやもしれぬ。
こんなものバラの手入れにも使えない。
カノン君、それは。
見せたく なかった。
What's going on?
よくぞ抜いたぞ。思いを寄せる女の前で己が人間以下の存在であることを晒した気分は。
Wait, the furniture thing was literal? That was like literal. What?
黙れ。
憤怒で己を焦がしているくせに冷静を装うか。なるほど。真に熱き炎は青く静かだという。今のそなたがそうだというのか。
僕の力でお前を殺すことなどできるわけもない。お前は月、石つぶてを投げたとて月を砕くことなどできるわけもない。だがお前は権限するために水面にその姿を映す。水面に石つぶてを投じれば一時月を乱すこともできるかもしれない。しかし月を砕くことなど至らない。だから僕はこの命尽きるまでお前の映る水面を叩き続けてやる。
気に入ったぞカノン。始めろカグども。ほう、美しい奇跡だ。
Witch's words of admiration broke the silence, and just for an instant they broke Jessica's paralysis.
私は夢を見てるの？
Yes.
来い、魔女の家具め。もときた地獄へ叩き落としてやる。
A strand of red had been left on Canon's cheek. The witch saw this and grinned broadly.
勘が戻らぬことを言い訳につぶやいてもよいぞ。
カノン君、しっかり。
大丈夫。僕はまだ死なない。
What was that effect? Oh, he's an RPG. He's an RPG maker enemy. Okay. The curve drawn by the ghost attendant's blade drew a large arc in empty space. Canon wasn't there. He was behind it.
先に帰りて。主の帰りを待つがいい。行け。
The battle of drawing sparkling curves was chess. No, what? Then Canon coming from behind was check. And press, and press, and press, and press, and press. Use 7 moves, make it a mate. Perhaps the goat attendant hadn't been granted the ability to go into death throes. As its knees buckled, it fell over, it broke into a bunch of gold butterflies with a pop. though there was no sound of it hitting the ground. Even those unable to understand this battle would surely realize that Cannon had been magnificent.
ハンドメイドには勝てぬか。そこまで見下げたものではないらしい。
次はお前だ。ベアトリーチェー!
The instant Cannon's blade sliced diagonally through the witch's form like a knife through butter, she turned into gold and burst. She scattered into several thousand gold butterflies, and just for an instant the room was filled with colour of twilight. It was just as Cannon himself had said. Slicing Beatrice was just the same as slicing the surface of water where the moon was reflected. The witch's form, with an ordinary expression on its face as though she'd been there the whole time, was right behind Cannon.
十分に面白い見せ物であったぞ。それに免じ見逃してやろうかと思ったが、今の無礼で気が変わった。
嘘をつくな。お前にお嬢様を殺させはしない。たとえそれが無理でも僕より先に殺させはしない。
お前にはそれすらできぬわ。喋るな家具が。無口であれ家具が。身の程を知れ家具が。
カノン君は家具なんかじゃない。
I think he is, though. Like, that's not like an insult, it's very literal in this world, I think.
ほう。なぜそう言えるのか。
I don't know what's going on.
理由なんかいらない。カノン君はカノン君だよ。うん、本当の名前は別にあるけれど、それでも名前は家具じゃない。カノン君にはカノン君の生き方がある。それはとても高潔なもので、自らが決めるもの。家具だから意見しちゃいけないとか、家具だから自分の人生を持っちゃいけないとか、そんなのないよ。
お嬢様、あいつを挑発してはいけません。
うん、はっきり言っておくぜ。カノン君は家具じゃない。人間だよ。どうして？カノン君は自分の意志で私を助けに駆けつけてくれた。そして恐ろしい魔女であるあんたの前に立ちはだかってくれた。私を見捨てることなんていくらでもできてたのに、そうしなかった。自己犠牲は人間だけが持つ高潔な精神だ。だからカノン君は人間なんだ。だから訂正しろ。カノン君を家具だなんて呼ぶな。二度と。
お嬢様。
Didn't the goat sacrifice itself for Beatrice? I mean, and that thing is definitely furniture, so Jessica's argument is stupid.
語るな人間が。とっとと終わらせよう。何しろまだまだ第二の番。互いの尊厳を認め合う寄り添いし二人を今こそ生贄に捧げよ。さあさあおいでなさい。罪を許しなさい。煉獄の七杭が一つ。色欲
For which summoned her furniture with a mixture of laughter and anger in her face.
色欲のアスモデウス。
The fuck are you?
ここに。
茶番は飽きた。
There's 6 more of these. Fucking hell.
第二の番を速やかに遂行せよ。わらわに瞬きを3つも許すな。
仰せのままに。
また妙なのが出やがったぜ。
It took Canon less than an instant to understand. The ghost faced from second go nothing more than a pawn to the witch, However, this newly summoned furniture was a game piece with a vastly different value.
素敵な獲物に恵まれるなんて、なんて幸運なのかしら。怯えてる？かわいい。
来い、魔女の家具。お前には殺されない。
私の姿を追うこともできないノロマのくせに生きがって行くわよ。ねえねえ、どこがいい？どこを貫いてほしい？お答えなさいよ、かわいい子。あなたの好きなところを思い切り貫いてあげる。さあさあ、お答えなさいよ、かわいい子。
僕を可愛いと言うな。
Are all the witch's minions gonna be this annoying?
行くわよ、ノルマ。さあ追ってごらん、その節穴で。
お嬢様。
目では追えなかったけどよ。
So twilight isn't like nighttime, it's just sort of like a time, I don't know.
読みは当てたぜ。さまあ見やがれ。
Cannon's back had been the target, but Jessica had predicted it. She predicted the witch's target would have been the complete opposite of Fair and Honest, his back. But she had no way to block it. She hadn't planned on it being some act of self-sacrifice, she just couldn't think of any way to protect Cannon's back. So she could do nothing but block it with her own back. Furniture of a witch, which had changed its form into a demon stake, was buried deep into Jessica's back. It was obviously a fatal wound that reached as far as her lungs. When she saw this, the witch let out a loud, evil laugh, because it had hit where the witch had predicted. Everything was the witch had predicted.
どうしたカノン。ジェシカお嬢様はお前より先には殺されなかったんじゃないのか。そうそう、それそれ、その顔よ。お前のその顔が見たかった。楽しんだ、実に十分。もうよい、死ね死ね、笑わせろ。さあさあ、おいでなさい。罪を許しなさい。煉獄の七杭が一つ。
Got another one.
フンド。
フンドのサタン、ここに。
その獲物はお前のものだ。今すぐ食らってこやつの舞台に幕を下ろしてやれ。人ならば交番とも言おうが、家具のお前の場合は大道具係が舞台裏に運び出すといったところか。
僕はもう家具じゃない。そしてそれを二度と疑わない。
なーに？あんたまた私に殺されちゃうの？あんたの胸、温かくて本当に貫くと気持ちがいいのよ。さあ、また味合わせて。あなたの温かい胸の中で熱い熱い血潮で私を思いっきり気持ちよくして。
There was no way to block it. Then dodge. But the sound of a woodpecker filled the entire room. And before he could blink, It was already in the centre of his chest. When you take a piece in chess, the rules say it's impossible for your opponent's piece to defend itself. So it was an obvious result in accordance with the rules. Canon landed on his knees, and he apologised. Not to the witch, not to Milady. He apologised to Jessica.
ごめん。守りきれなかった。
気にしないで。かっこよかったよ。
Canon finally fell over. He landed next to Jessica and the two lay there like Constellation Gemini.
カノン君はさ、もう家具じゃないよ。
はい。それに気づくのが遅すぎた。
君の本当の名前聞きたかった。
僕の本当の名前は
In his last moments, Canon wanted to tell her his real name, but Jessica had already fallen into a sleep from which she would never wake. So Canon's real name, which he had protected up until now, in the end, he couldn't tell it to Jessica.
僕は人間にな
Those were the last words Canon left behind.
笑わせるな家具が。100年を経ようと家具は家具よ。捨てるときに家具のために墓穴を掘るバカがどこにいる？家具は叩き割って薪にして、後には灰しか残らぬわ。そういうことよ。家具に刻める墓碑などない。貴様は死ねばこれ以上の屈辱を受けることがないと信じてるようだが、それは甘いぞ。死者を恥ずかしめるというのがどういうものか。
After taking a puff from her pipe, the witch breathed the smoke on Canon's corpse. When she did, Canon's corpse softly floated up into the air and disappeared as though being eaten by a mouth in empty space. The witch played dirty until the very end. The corpse of the pair who managed to understand each other in the end were not even permitted to be close. If someone had been watching, they would have probably mournfully said, "So this is what you meant by disgracing the dead." However, Beatrice was far crueler than that. Reason for that would soon become apparent. So none of that really happened. It's a massive waste of time. Oh, what? Wait, what? Why did it go back? Is it we're going to Battler and Co?